Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and today we're going to do a review of my first microbrand, Boldr, and in particular the Boldr Globetrotter. First, let's talk a little bit about Boldr. New company out of Malaysia and Singapore, still owned by its founders. They see themselves as providing, and let me read this, Boldr supplies watches, apparel and gear that's stylish, functional and hashtag ready for adventure. Generally, I'd say the range is on message and focused, and it really keeps to that vision quite cleanly. The model we're talking about here is the Globetrotter. Doesn't have a reference number. What is it about microbrands and not having reference numbers? Don't they understand what we geeks need? Okay, it's current. I think it came out late last year. The Kickstarter was early last year. It ended up coming out in about November. I've had mine for a couple of weeks. Sizes and wearability. This is a diver style, and it's on the big side. So 44 millimeters across, 50 millimeters lug to lug, and 14.5 millimeters thick. So this is a big chunk of steel. It's tall and it's heavy as well. So it really can overpower things like a NATO. I tried it on a NATO for a while and ended up going back to the bracelet, because it gives it a much better balance on the wrist. That said, the bracelet's also a killer, so I'd probably recommend that anyway. Okay, it's comfortable despite all these apparent sharp edges. So when you see the pictures, you're going to see sharp edges and corners, and possibly be worried about pinching or scratching. Don't be. Very clever design so that none of those edges are anywhere near your skin. Materials: 316L steel, sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel, rock solid, everything you'd expect. Movement: it's an ETA 2893-2 GMT, unmodified. So this one's a GMT hand setter. So when you put the crown to the first position, it will adjust the GMT hand. More on that later. First off, we'll talk about usability, and in that classification, we're going to talk about the functions. Basically, it tells the time, it's got a date, and it's got this GMT function. Now, again, I'm going to go back to what Boldr describes this watch as, and they say it's a hashtag tough enough GMT watch for urban travelers. Track 2 time zones on your wrist as you explore the wide world. Now, frankly, I don't think they've got the best GMT implementation for that. The way this watch is set up, with the making it very easy to adjust the GMT rather than the local hand, actually makes it better for you staying at home and tracking the time zones of your friends and family as they travel. That's pretty much the way that the ETA movement rolls, and they haven't bothered to modify it. That's what you're going to get. Okay, the city markings on the bezel is a nice touch, giving you this quasi kind of world timer feel. But frankly, I would have preferred just a normal timer bezel, giving you the ability to track, small periods of time for like how long have I got to wait for some things. Not a big thing, but I would have preferred it. Legibility: it's actually pretty good. You can see the hands and you can see the time from pretty much all angles, all day, all night. The polar option's probably not the best in the range, but it is the coolest looking, so that's on me. That's what I chose to do. The controls, very good. The crown is easy to grip, the threads are nice, you can get it in location, in its positions really nicely and positively. Excellent. Likewise, the bezel's quite good. It's bidirectional 60 click, which is perfect for this kind of travel bezel. That said, the movement's a little bit dull. It is clean and there's no play, but you don't get that really nice positive click in the very best bezels. Now, I rarely talk about bracelets and bands because for me, I just routinely swap them out. But 2 things here. One, as I said before, this is a very big and heavy watch, so the bracelet really is needed to balance it. But secondly, and more importantly, the bracelet is just brilliant. First off, as I said, it really weights and balances the watch well. Secondly, the shark mesh is beautifully flexible and it's really comfortable. It wraps around the wrist wonderfully. And finally, this bracelet is really, the clasp is really high quality. It's very secure. You've got that 1 millimeter of dive extension, which itself is kind of discreet and usable just on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't make the watch look kind of broken like some dive extensions do if you use it. Really strongly recommend getting the bracelet option. In terms of robustness, well, that's this watch's main game. So it's diver based, it's going to be rock solid. Water resistance is excellent with 300 meters and a screw down crown. Material strength, it's got all the right stuff in all the right places, and it's going to have all the shock resistance and anti-magnetism you need. In terms of accuracy, it's an ETA 2893. It'll be fine. Okay, so that's the boring mucky muck out of the way. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. How good looking is this watch? Actually, it's great, but it is very focused on what its look is. Now, generally, travel watches can go in one of two directions. You can get the kind of lightweight, dressy, elegant, clean travel watch, and that's the sort of thing that James Bond wears to the casino. Or you can get the ex-diver that's ready to storm a beach like Rambo would wear. The Boldr Globetrotter is very definitely Rambo's watch in that comparison. Again, I'm going to go back to what Boldr says about this watch, and what they say is the Boldr Globetrotter is a tough dive watch that makes the iconic Boldr dive design a step further. Built #tough enough for any adventure, the Globetrotter was designed to be with you always. That's probably true, as long as always doesn't include the dining room. I think it would look a bit weird there. Likewise with a suit, this doesn't really play well. But in terms of storming a beach, going jet skiing, going skiing, hanging out by the pool, this watch is with you. A little bit more on what they mean by the iconic Boldr design and what does that mean? I guess this is the kind of design that watch geeks call architectural. Getting all fancy pants, I did some searching on architectural and architectural design, and one of the quotes I found but can't relocate and therefore can't cite says that architecture is all about geometry, and geometry is all about lines and points. And you can really see what they mean when you look at this watch. This watch is a bundle of, there's I think 2 curves and everything else is a straight line or a hard point. Getting a little bit less fancy pants and a bit simpler, what you can say is an architectural watch is one that reminds you of a building. Now, the interesting question with the Boldr Globetrotter is, what building would that be? If it's architectural, what school of architecture? Personally, I'd say this is for the brutalist school. This Globetrotter recalls those flak towers I saw in Vienna once that were left over from World War II. They're damn impressive and impossible to kill with anything short of a tactical nuke. Now, this kind of uncompromising design really relies heavily upon execution and details. If you don't get clean lines, sharp, crisp edges, and really nice finishing, this design will really point it out. And the good news is the Globetrotter has all of that in spades. It is really well made. There's also some really clever touches. If you look carefully, you'll see there's this little bevel on the bottom of the mid case, which visually shrinks the size down and allows them to have this wonderful smooth sweep down the side of the watch without actually looking slab-sided, which in a watch that's 14.5 millimeters thick is really quite impressive. In short, what I'd say is that the design the build largely carries off what is a fairly severe design brief. There is one quibble I've got, which is the bezel edges. I think they look a little bit too busy, and personally I think they probably should have sacrificed some function for form there and kept up that minimalist look by getting rid of some of that beveling. But as I said, on the other hand, the bezel does work very well with all of those edges. So in short, the Boldr does its look well and carries it off to be a fairly bold statement. So speaking of statements, what does this watch actually say to other people? Well, I think the first thing it says is, look at me. So unless you're prepared to wear a watch that is quite this in your face and can be seen by everyone, this possibly isn't for you. What it also says is, I'm a kick-ass watch and I'm down for whatever you want to throw at me. So again, if that's the message that you want to send, this is the watch for you. It's certainly a watch that stands apart from the others. First off, Boldr, it does get a lot of airplay on YouTube, but I think that can lead to a bit of a misconception about how big this brand is. It is a micro brand. Its watch runs are in the hundreds, maybe thousands. So it's extremely unlikely that you'll run into someone else wearing these. Certainly, I've never actually seen another Boldr in the wild. It's also a fairly unique look, especially in the polar colorway and some of the other colorways they offer. It's certainly unlikely to be mistaken for anything else, and nor will anyone ever look at this and think you settled for this instead of something else. This is clearly a watch you buy because you want this watch, and that's an important thing. Okay, so what is the price of this watch? Okay, $850 to about $1,000 US. That gives you a Swiss movement, interesting design, rock solid execution, and it's quite uncommon. So that's not a bad price to be paying. I'd recommend paying at the top end of that because that means you're getting the bracelet, and as I've said 3 or 4 times, go the bracelet with this one. As far as maintenance goes, it's a current ETA. It's just going to be as easy as it gets for the movement. For the rest of the watch, I can't see anything going wrong given its build and its standards. Okay, finding one. It's a micro brand, so go to the company website. They might be in, they might not be in. That's the trials and tribulations of a micro brand. It's certainly no Helios Seaforth. There are some available more than 48 hours after release, but you might want to get in pretty quick. So what's the verdict? Are we going to swipe right or swipe left on this watch? For me, this is simple. This is a hard swipe right. I really recommend this watch as long as you meet 2 criteria. One, you're happy with the size. This is a chunky watch. Remember, 44 millimeters, 50 millimeters, 14.5 millimeters. Big chunk of steel. Got to be ready for that. And secondly, it's making a very bold and distinctive design choice. So if you're up for the size and the design, then this is a hard right. If not, then it's not a watch for you. I do have a few quibbles. As I said, I'd like the bezel to be done a little bit better. I would have preferred them to modify the movement so that the first position changes the main hour hand, not the GMT. But hey, no one's perfect, and at this price, this is a solid watch. So that's it. That's my review of the Boldr Globetrotter. I hope you found this helpful. If you're in the market and I've helped you make a buying choice, please like the video. As I said, as I always say, I am building this channel and I need your help in subscriptions and likes. So do us a solid and give us a like. Thanks very much, and I'll see you later.